Welcome to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
Kia ora koutou, welcome to another episode of the Thrive TV Show. I'm Lauren Parsons, your host, and today I'm joined by the one and only Monique Bradley. Lovely to have you here, Monique.
So stoked to be here. I've watched so many of these episodes and I'm always like, wow, this is amazing. One day I'll have my chance. No, I'm joking. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real honor.
So exciting. This is going to be the highlight of my day, as I said to you in my email earlier. So we are talking about, are your stories holding you back? We're going to dive deep into looking at imposter syndrome, what it is, how it affects us, and how your stories can hold you back or lead you to your greatest success. So before I go into all of that, let me just do my this and that questions with you, Monique. So tell me, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Dogs. I hear you're the
100%.
crazy dog lady.
I am the crazy dog lady. I have nicknames for all the local neighborhood dogs. I had dogs growing up, loved them. My grandmother had the best pug ever. Her name was Harriet, and just loved it. I think they're amazing. They're better than some humans, to be fair. I
Okay.
love humans too, though.
Nice. Okay. Tell me, beachfront or mountaintop?
Beachfront.
Okay. Fresh salad or cooked veggies?
You cannot beat roasted vegetables, but then I also love a Caesar salad as well.
Okay.
So, it's kind of a tie.
Okay, this is a fun one for you. Spots or stripes?
Spots.
Okay, I was thinking you're going to say both. Bright colors everywhere.
Well, I do wear both, but I used to be a magician called Zappalina, and my dresses that I wore were covered in bright polka dots. So I am naturally taken to circles and stars actually. So spots and stars would probably be my thing, but I love stripes too. Oh my God, I'm so conflicted.
Okay. And would you rather have a live-in chef or a live-in masseuse?
Chef.
Chef. Okay.
Yeah, love food. Total foodie.
Beautiful. So Monique Bradley is an award-winning speaker, MC, and coach with a rich background in film, television, and live presenting. One of only 11 TV shopping presenters in New Zealand, Monique mastered the art of connecting authentically with audiences in high-pressure live environments. With decades of experience in communication and storytelling, she now focuses on empowering individuals to overcome imposter syndrome, which is what we're talking all about today. And she delivers practical strategies and powerful insights. So I can't wait to get into that. So Monique, just tell us a little bit of your backstory, just a little bit about how did you get into what you're doing now?
Oh my goodness, how much time do we actually have? I
I
will
know.
go.
Give me the short version.
Okay, I'll give you the short version. I got into performing arts because, like most kids, I was bullied. And so my parents, who also met in theatre and they came from performing arts, and I have siblings who were in radio and television, anything to do with storytelling seemed natural to me. And it seems counterintuitive that to put a child who's being bullied into a high pressure situation in the spotlight on a stage, you'd think that would be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But the more that it worked for me, because my superpower is my voice and my languaging and my ability to tell stories and to engage. So for me, it's actually where I felt safe. And the more that I spent time on stage, the stronger my voice became and the more that the bullies couldn't touch me. So I found this strength and this confidence. And so really through a career that spanned everything from film and television to voiceovers, I've worked with Xbox as a voiceover artist for a game called Far Cry 3. I've worked I owned my own performing arts school. I've been a magician, award-winning magician, in fact. Everything for me across all of the work that I've done, including owning a digital agency with my partner Pete for 11 years, everything was always about storytelling. And it was how do we use our voices to deliver authentic messaging or to connect with people. And it all came from understanding my superpower first. And now that's really what I try to help clients with. So when they come to me going, I need to get myself out there, I'm like, why aren't you doing that? Cool. Let's unpack those stories first, and then let's help you find and craft your own. And that's what I do, either as a speaker to inspire audiences or in a coaching and training environment. And I love it. Or I'm a spokesperson for other people telling their stories on their behalf. But it all comes back to storytelling. And I've done probably 25 years of study and training on understanding how stories and the way that our neurons kind of fire, how they impact us, and how we can also hack them to lead us to the successful life that we want. It's all stories.
Love it. Love it. It's so well said. And here's a little story for you. When you talked about superpower, I love that bringing out people's superpowers because I have three daughters, and my youngest daughter, we often say, oh, that's Bethany off using her superpower. And her superpower is whenever she's at the playground or out and about, she'll just go and make friends. She'll meet people, she'll ask questions,
Oh,
and she'll just build this connection and they'll just be off and playing. And what was so beautiful was the other day, Monique, she said to me, oh, I was just using my superpower. And like, oh, it almost brings a tear to the eye now. Like,
oh,
so I love that we've just spoken that into her identity, that even though she's been through some really tough stuff at school, bullying and things last year, and lots of friendship difficulties at the age and stage she's at, kind of pre-teens,
mm,
oh, she knows that her superpower is connecting with people. How cool is that? So, so
love
much, I
that.
agree, comes down to our stories. And just have to say, I've been so excited for today because I met Monique and Pete, as she mentioned, her partner, through the Professional Speakers Association of New Zealand, and these guys are just amazing. Not only amazing professionals, top of their game, but just beautiful human beings, so kind. Just, yeah, we'll come to you, Lauren. Yeah, we'll meet up, we'll catch up for drink, just lovely, lovely people. So this is exciting.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank
enough
you so
about
much.
us, all about you. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. What is it and why is it a problem? Tell me that.
Okay, so there's a couple of reasons why it's a challenge. Imposter syndrome, first of all, when we talk about a syndrome is a collection of symptoms. That's the key definition of what a syndrome is. Imposter syndrome is not even validated or seen as an actual diagnosis according to the American health system. As you know, in all their medical journals, it's not actually a diagnosis. It's usually a concept that someone will adopt for feelings of inadequacy. And
Mhm.
feelings are very real and we acknowledge them. I have a beef with the term. And I
Yes.
have a beef with the term because people use it as a limiting belief that gets in the way of productivity, of success, of creating a life that they really want.
Hmm.
And why I have a beef with it is, again, it doesn't actually exist, but it is a very real thing to feel. But the good
Okay.
news is, and this is what I really want people to understand, is that feelings change. And that's really the empowering bit. And to give you some context and an example, I always think back to when I was a teenager and I loved Boy George as an
Mhm.
example. I loved Boy George. I thought Boy George was amazing. That shows my age, right?
Yeah.
I'm a typical 80s kid. I loved the 80s. And I remember thinking through the 80s, every different week I would have a crush on a new pop star and they were the flavor of the month. Oh my God, I was in love with them. I was going to meet them. Oh, this was going to be amazing. And then the next week I didn't love them. I loved someone else. So that gives you a real context on how fast feelings can change. When those feelings are directed at ourselves, it's a little bit deeper, but those feelings can change too. The most
Hmm.
important thing about it is understanding what is the origin of those feelings. Are they actually your feelings? Are they feelings that have come from the stories and the beliefs of someone else giving their opinion about you? And if it is, if you've allowed that story to become louder than your own inner story or your own self concept, what are you going to do about it? Because you can consciously and intentionally change those feelings about yourself. How do I know? Because I've done it.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's really at the core of what imposter syndrome is. It is not it's not an accurate representation of who you are and the value you give.
Hmm.
It is simply a representation of how you feel about yourself. And often it's not true.
Yeah.
You
And
are
it's interesting
amazing. You are
when feelings
great.
change, and we can have so many different feelings at the same time. And it's interesting seeing, and I think in any sphere we can face this, but particularly if you own your own business or if, for example, being a speaker, if you're putting yourself out there and you're perhaps on the
Mm,
lineup to be speaking at a conference, and then sometimes obviously you get accepted and sometimes you don't. And so
mm,
you're very much selling yourself. It's interesting having to deal with that and seeing that those feelings just come and go. And
mm,
you can get booked and someone's really excited and talking you up and you can feel on top of the world and then the next week perhaps you don't get booked or
mm.
perhaps whatever the scenario is for you listening in. When things don't work out, what do we do in those moments when we get the closed doors, when we get the knockbacks? What do we do then?
Oh, wow. Such a good question. I've just been going through a similar situation myself. One of the hardest things is to value your identity. And that's what imposter syndrome is. It's valuing this value of sense of self, right? And we talk about this as speakers. How do you sell yourself? And business owners are doing it all the time. They're coming in with skills and expertise, and there's a certain amount of tangible stuff that we can value, but it's actually the intangible, which is the energy we bring into a room as speakers, as an example, and it's the value of our identity and who we are. It's a real challenge. So I've just been going through this exercise again myself as I'm pitching for an organization that I'm looking at doing some work with. How do you put a dollar figure on that? It is really hard, and it makes you readdress all of those feelings of, oh my goodness, am I really good enough to do this? All of those questions that come out. What happens if they say no? And what I realized is that in my lifetime, I've had so many no's. Like as an actor, I don't know how many thousands of auditions I've been to. And
Hmm.
out of that, maybe 1% will convert into a yes.
Wow.
And what I've learned, and that's part of resilience building, right? But what I've learned is that every no makes me readdress and reflect on why was that a no?
Yeah.
So what is it going to take for me to open a doorway to yes?
Hmm. Great.
And if that doorway to yes isn't through the front door, then I'm always constantly reflecting and going, cool, if I can't get through the front door, how will I get through the side window?
Okay.
So I use it as a tool to be able to go, cool, maybe that's not the right client, maybe that's not the right opportunity, but somewhere else there will be. And it connects back to your why. If
Hmm.
your why is big enough, if you know your purpose, that's actually what drives your confidence and it drives you to keep on going. But until you do that inner work, you can't answer those questions.
I love it. Again, just thinking about, personally, my daughters really love live theatre and performing arts,
Mm.
and they've been through auditions and they've had knockbacks, and it's heartbreaking because you just want them to get through. But I was reflecting on that last year about how actually these are great opportunities in life for them to go out for something and to miss out because, that might happen in future with even more high stakes scenarios like job interviews or things that actually count even more than what they're just going through.
Mm.
And it's all resilience building, isn't it?
100%. And it was the same when I owned my own performing arts school. My goal was not for the children to become the best actors, singers, or dancers. They will excel in whatever they excel. I wanted them to become their best selves. And
No.
so I would often tell the parents, this isn't about perfection, this is about progress. And that I'm not equipping them to be singers. That, if they want to become the latest pop star, they've got to follow that. It's their drivers. What I'm trying to equip them with is skills, life skills. And that is, so from day one, my students were auditioning for solos within the pieces that we were going to perform. And parents would say to me, oh, they'll never audition. Well, within one session, they were auditioning and they were learning that if they didn't get that part, they had to keep going to get the part. If that's what they really wanted, it's up
Mm.
to them. They're the driver of their success. And just recently, I had the great honor of being the celebrant for one of my students, who is now a
Um,
beautiful woman. I've known her since she was 8 years of age. And here she was standing up in front of this beautiful audience of people, confident and amazing. And that for me, just seeing her being her best self, that is success. But she chose that pathway. And I
mhm,
think as parents, as mentors, as teachers, that's what our job should be, right? Is to say, what do you want to achieve? What's important to you? And when they
mhm,
find that pathway of who they are, of understanding their self-concept, understanding that they actually have the pen in their hand and can write the stories of their lives, that is where we start to change the narratives of self-limiting beliefs. That's where we step into real confidence, real self-worth and self-esteem. It's amazing. I
mhm.
love it. Can you
Awesome.
tell?
I can. And you mentioned a really key word there, self-concept. So I'd love it
Mm,
if you can unpack that for us a bit. And how do we form these great stories, to build on
I
rather
love
than
it.
the great ones?
Such a good question. So, self-concept was something I actually picked up during my master's journey over the last 2 years. And so I identified that as a speaker, I really wanted to step into the topics of authenticity and self-worth. Confidence is what I really want to help people understand, because when you are confident, you have resilience, you have unwavering faith in your abilities. And self-concept was one of the terms that I started really diving into as I studied things like sociodrama and psychodrama and all sorts of things around doing my master's. It all comes back to identity. How do we perceive ourselves? And I think back to times in my life where I worked in retail as an example, and I would have people coming in. When you're an actor, retail is the best training ground because you see characters coming through and you start to understand all of the greatness that makes up a character, what drives them, how they see the world, all these things which you can put into your acting toolkit and draw on when you come to portray a character. And so I would see somebody, these people would come in and go, oh, well, that's just the way I am. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Or, I saw somebody else being referred to as a heart on legs, or people coming in going, oh, well, making excuses for the way that they are. And they would basically deliver their self-concept to me.
Mm.
And the more that I listened and the more that I watched their nonverbal communication, you would start to see the self-concept as a character. If we think about tests like Myers-Briggs and all these other personality tests, they're studies of character. We're starting to see how people actually perceive themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That self-perception comes from the beliefs that we hold about ourselves. Those beliefs come from the stories that we hear or the stories that we embody, the things that we hear about ourselves that we repeat over and over again, so that becomes true to us. That's what shapes belief. And the beliefs then govern the choices that we make in our lives. They govern our behavior. They govern everything that we choose to do, whether it's negative or positive. And of course, the more that we have these negative stories rolling around in our heads, our beautiful brain, which is governing 90% of our day through our subconscious, it's constantly looking for affirming behavior or data that activates those stories or defines or reminds us that those stories are true.
Yes.
So only 10% of our waking day, which is our conscious, intentional thought, is where we can actually start to change those narratives. So if we've got limiting thoughts that are contributing to how we perceive ourselves, which is our self-concept, if we've got all those negative thoughts, then our brain keeps going, oh, yes, I don't do this because, or I am this way because, and we have these beliefs. When we step into the present moment, we activate presence. We are here right now. We start to understand that who I am now can actually be created. We're not stuck in those beliefs or that self-concept. We can continually evolve and create a new sense of self-concept in alignment with who we want to become. Did I clarify that for you?
Yeah. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and want to break this down a bit for people that are listening in.
Cool.
What's the first step then? You talked about getting present, you talked about affirming that self-concept of who we want to be. Are you saying that it's like picturing, I want to be a confident person, or even I am a
100%.
confident person, and speaking that over myself? Is it as simple as that?
We've got to go a step backwards. It starts with awareness.
Okay.
So there's 3 steps. There's awareness, and then there's the visualization, and then there's action.
Okay.
AVA, I call it. AVA, nice and easy to remember. So the awareness is having that critical moment of going, I'm awake and I don't feel like I'm achieving everything I want to in my life. I feel like I'm stuck. Or especially when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's going, I'm in this job that I feel like a fraud. Or becoming aware of the fact that nothing can happen unless it's done right, and it will only get done right if it's by me. And you've got that perfectionism. So there's
Ooh.
lots of little moments of imposter syndrome manifestations that we become aware of first.
Okay.
So where am I being hyper driven? Where am I, feeling like a fraud? Having all of that. Do I have that moment of being found out? What am I trying to prove? Why am I constantly going, oh, I'm not quite good enough. I need to go and do another course and another course. It's great to keep learning and to educate, but is it to the detriment of not earning money or not putting yourself out there? There's a fine balance in going, cool, I think I'm stuck somewhere. That's where it starts. The next step in this kind of matrix is going, cool, what does success actually look like for me? What is that visualization
Yes.
of achievement? So awareness, visualization. What does success look like for me? So for me as a speaker, a couple of years ago, Pete and I we still had this digital agency. I knew I wasn't happy in digital, and neither was Pete. And I just lost two brothers 3 weeks apart. And to get through some of the grief and the trauma, I did some meditation on a plane flying back from one of the tangi. I'm sitting there and I did this visualization. I thought, cool, I'm feeling stuck right now. What am I going to do about it? As I did this visualization, I saw myself and I was speaking on an international stage. And when I came out of it, I said to Pete, I'm a global speaker. That's where I'm going. And he went, okay. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I saw that picture. And then I knew that the next step was every single day I was going to take an action towards that goal. I gave myself 5 years to achieve that. I achieved it in 18 months. So it's getting that vision really clear and going, here's the reason why that vision is important to me. Because storytelling matters. Because imposter syndrome, while I don't like it, it matters. I want to get that stuff out of the way for people and activate them to think differently and to be differently and to show them that success is possible. So it was that sort of plan. Through that visualization, I started changing the narratives. Affirmations were part of that as well. So affirmations move more into what action am I taking? I am a global speaker. I would write notes to myself and put them as alerts on my phone. So at 9:55 every day before I head into a 10 o'clock meeting, an alert would go off that says, I am amazing. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to take action. I'm here to serve, whatever those affirmations were. And if we think about it, a self-limiting belief or a story that affects our self-concept is just a story or a belief we've told ourselves over and over again so it becomes true. The only thing to do it is use the conscious present moment to write new ones and repeat them over and over again in the same way that the self-limiting ones have been stuck in our brain as well.
Yeah, because it's so interesting, isn't it, to recognize that not everything we think is true or correct. And all those little times where you think, oh, stupid me, oh, I can't do this, this will never work. The first
Right.
step is always awareness, noticing those statements. And I picture it's a bit like, the old school cassette tapes. Don't know why I think of this, but because you could record over them, right? You got to
You
hit eject on that
absolutely
cassette
can.
tape, another 80s child, and you've got to re-record over it with the truth, which is that you are amazing. You are amazing, Monique. To you listening in right
You
now,
are.
you're amazing. This is my key message I want to share with the world to help
Mm,
people really realize that they are amazing. You're
mm,
precious. You're confident. You are capable. You can just do amazing things. No one is the same as you.
mm.
We've got to re-record over that. And someone once told me that it's a bit like showering, that, in terms of a mindset practice, it's something that you've got to do daily. So I love that little idea of have the reminder in your
Oh,
phone,
so good.
5 to 10. And another thing this is reminding me of, which is something I was reminded of recently, to look at this more often. I have what's called a vision book, and this is something that I created with my dear friend Sally Guest, who's now based in Tauranga. We both happen to live in Ottawa, Canada, and we have a lot in common, being Kiwis, being coaches. And it's actually a story of my life as I want it to be. And this might I don't
So
want this to
good.
be intimidating to anyone, but if you're listening in, what I'm showing is just a book of pictures and words that share, my top 3 values are love, authenticity, and kindness. And I choose to feel grateful and relaxed and uplifted, and how I want to feel, and my belief statements. And there's so much power in getting clarity on that, because when I created this, I have to say, the statement says an exceptional speaker, inspirational motivator, influencer, thought leader, respected author, fantastic mother, loving wife, great friend.
Oh,
And I
so
certainly,
good.
I certainly was all of those last 3 things, in my personal life. But when I first wrote that, I hadn't done all the things that I've done now. I didn't have the level of speaking ability that I have now. Certainly hadn't gone on to win any awards or speak to huge audiences at that point. So it was certainly a stretch goal. But
Mm.
it's really interesting because it just kind of, I don't know, defies logic to me that more people don't do this. Like, I just want to encourage anyone listening in, you've got to get
100%.
clarity on how you really imagine life to be, even if it seems a big stretch goal, because the more you keep reminding yourself of it, yeah, literally what you're talking about, it's just sort of
You're
making
writing new stories.
you're writing your story. So, and I don't
100%.
share that to show off at all, but just hopefully to inspire people to realize whatever the goal is, whatever's somewhere a little kernel of an idea that you have, write it out as if it is. And we used to have the saying when I was working at the New Zealand College of Fitness, we were teaching personal training, but a lot of life skills as well. We had the saying, be before you are, and you will become. And we shared the
So
story
good.
about Holly, who grew up and she, at about 5 years old, saw the Olympic gymnasts. And her mum was vacuuming, and she said to her mum, I want to do that one day. And her mum just went, oh, yeah, okay, darling, as we do. But she actually set this goal. She really wanted to become an Olympic gymnast. And so she wasn't necessarily the most athletic or the most naturally talented gymnast. She wasn't as tall as some of her peers. She wasn't as flexible as her peers, but
Mm.
she would turn up every day, immaculately presented. She would be there early. She would stay late. She would decided not to go and smoke behind the sheds with some of the other girls. And one year she was picked to be in the Olympic development squad. And the coach said to her that the reason we've picked you, it's not because of your natural ability, but it's because of your attitude and the
Mm.
way that you show up. And she was all about being before you are and you will become.
I love that. I love that. It reminds me actually of when I was 6, I used to stand in the kitchen of my family home, and I would make scones, and I would stand there and I would use the window in front of me to be the camera, so that I was talking to the camera, and I always, and again, this ages me, I would go, hello, I'm Alison Holst. And I used to pretend to be her.
Yeah.
And what I understand is that the self-concept that I had as a child, and pre sort of 7 years of age, when our brainwave functioning changes, we know who we are.
Mm.
We've started forming our self-concept, but we actually can connect back to that time of knowing the essence of who we are. I always knew I would end up in the media or doing something along that line. And I remember a few years ago when I worked on the TV shopping channel, standing there in front of a big camera, which had a big square lens on it. It was a big TV studio camera, standing there, and I was about to do a cooking demonstration on live TV for TV shopping. Now, funny, I can't actually cook.
Yeah.
I'm quite a good baker, but I can't
I've
cook,
heard you hear that story.
right? It's just crazy. And I'm standing there, and I realized at that moment, this is my Alison Holst moment.
Love it.
This is actually who I knew I was all along. It just took me a whole lot of years to connect back to who I was. So from what, 19, I was born in 73. So this must have been 1979 to 2016.
Wow.
It took me all that time to actually connect to who I am.
Wow.
And that's nobody else's fault, by the way. No, the way that the brain takes in these stories or these concepts of people's opinions that become true for us, that define our self-concept, that's nobody else's fault.
Mm.
Yes, we all suffer trauma, we get
Yeah.
bullied, all of that sort of thing. But it was my choice to choose for those stories to become my truth. And now I choose different stories.
Awesome. I love it. That leads into actually, I just wanted to talk about, people might be listening in and going, oh, wow, there you go, Monique, Lauren, you've won awards. You guys are amazing. You're in some sort of separate category. I just wanted to share something really personal that for me, I feel like, because I've done a lot of work into my self-limiting beliefs. And I
Mm,
think one of the most universal ones is that we're not good enough or that we're
mm.
not worthy in some level. And specifically for me, I grew up feeling like I was boring and that I wasn't important.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and I just share that because perhaps other people might have had, similar or different beliefs that have held you back. So I'm interested to hear what would you say to people that are listening and going, oh, I know that I haven't got great stories, or I haven't told great stories, or how do I even turn that around? If someone's there going, feeling like I'm not
Yeah.
important, don't have anything to add, I'm boring, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
Cool. One of the first things that I do, that I've done with people, is to write, like you've got in your book, that list of all those things that you can find which are great about yourself, and they become a tangible truth. You can't just think about it in your head. You have to actually physically write it down, because then you manifest it into form, and you can't argue with that form. It becomes a tangible. In the quantum physics space, it's the difference between particles and waves and all that sort of thing. We start to collapse the ideas which are, I'm going super geeky here. We collapse the ideas which are stuck in the first reality, which are part of the creative mind. We start to collapse that into reality by writing it. Um, you can't argue when it's written down, right? It's like data and social media. You can't argue with the numbers. So it's about writing the things that are actually important. So being able to go, I'm a great dog mum, or my dog loves me. Like simple things. Finding those other things where, especially if we're business owners or entrepreneurs and we're constantly thinking about, I deliver great results. Stop thinking about the doingness, think about the beingness. So I think critically about myself. And again, this is a this has been a work in progress for me. This has taken a lot of evolution and a lot of rewrites to be able to go, I'm really funny. I bring a lot of energy and joy into a room. Like I know it and I can
No.
feel it about myself. And that's what then drives my confidence. And that's what drives me being able to show up and being unapologetic about the amount of energy I bring and not playing small anymore and like writing all those things, but also focusing on value. So being to give is really important. So it's great being a big personality like me. For some people, that's challenging. Okay, so what do I give? Hopefully, joy, inspiration, thinking differently, possibilities and potential, inspirational. Like
Mm,
those are the things that I want to give. So if you can't identify even who you are right now, think of what you can give, not
yeah.
what you can do, but that
Hmm.
act of service. Because for changing thoughts, it could be that reciprocity factor of actually I can give time or I can give great support or friendship or communication or connection or acts of service. Like think love languages.
Yeah.
How do we give? When we start to do that, it changes that sense of self when we start to feel our empowerment, to personal empowerment, which you feel in your stomach. It's
Hmm.
that emotional core, it starts to change. And from there, you go, actually, yeah, I'm back to home base again. This is who I am. So what am I going to do about it?
I love that. And I think you're absolutely right that obviously people don't need to be like Monique, like Lauren. It's about being you. And it might be that you bring this amazing calm, or it might be that you're the person
Right.
that's able to, just spot all the details. You're that details person, or perhaps you're that person that's super empathetic and you're able to tune into how people are feeling. And yeah, everyone has superpowers, right? And I
100%.
love the idea of listing them, go in
Yeah.
and just your homework after this is to go and grab a blank piece of paper and just write down what are all the things that you know that you're good
So
at,
good.
that you think that
So
your
good.
friends and family and people that love you would say that you're good at or that are your qualities. And what are the
So
qualities
good.
you want to be known for, you want to reflect back on as your legacy in this world.
And the
Mm.
other thing I really want to add is to remember that not everybody's going to like you, and
Yes,
that doesn't matter. It's
yes.
most important to get to that place where you like you. And if you don't like you right now, what are you going to do about it? It's all about taking that action and then coming back, doing that awareness, that self-reflection, setting that visualization or that visual image of who you want to become or who you are becoming. And then from there, that inspires that action.
So true. I was literally thinking of that earlier, again, as a speaker, not everyone is going to love you, your style. Not everyone's going to love Lauren Parsons, my style. And, virtually every audience, there'll be some people that just don't perhaps click, that I'm not their favorite speaker. And that's okay. And I've actually sat in audiences where I've listened to other speakers and been sitting there going, yeah, this is just not really my cup of tea. They're just over the top. They're not giving me any value. And then I've talked to someone about it afterwards and they've been like, wasn't she amazing? Wasn't he
I
incredible?
know,
And I'm
right?
like, okay, you really enjoyed that. I thought it was just, not that much detail or, so, but the thing that I've learned is that there's no point, as you say, trying to hold back on who you are. If that's who you are, you've got to be you. Obviously, at times we'll adapt our personality style and we'll adapt to circumstances and those around us, but you've just got to be you and realize that there's no point. It's like that poem
Mm.
about the pear, is it? That if you're worried about being a pear and so then you decide to try and be a banana, well, maybe some people won't like bananas, you know.
That's exactly right. And in the corporate, in the business world, it's about having that situational intelligence
Yes,
to read the room, but never ever compromise who you are.
yes.
It's about, especially when we, as speakers, it's actually, we're not here to speak at people, we're here to meet them in co-creation,
Yeah.
right? It's about co-presence, and it's the same in leadership, and it's the same in everything, in parenting, in everything that we do. You know, you're dealing with another human who has their own feelings and, you know, everything going on. So it's about taking up your own space and being unapologetic about it, knowing who you are, knowing how you are, knowing why you are, knowing how you serve, all of that stuff. And because we don't come into this world with a playbook, and nobody sort of tells you that stuff, it takes you, I think it takes to your midlife woman actually to work it out that it's okay to do that, and to do that reflection work, and to look at that timeline of your life and go, cool, what didn't work? Why didn't it work? Who was I becoming in that moment? Wow, how does it reflect on how I am now? Who am I becoming? How am I becoming? All of those questions. It actually takes time of reflection. And
Mm.
you can never undervalue the power of that, because that leads to how you show up, and it leads to your state, and your state determines your experience.
Yes. And I think when we do reflect back on our stories or our lives to date, you mentioned or alluded to this earlier, that it's about looking at what can we learn from that and looking forward to what do we want to springboard forward to.
100%.
Yeah.
In Te Ao Māori principles, we call it looking through the eyes of onamata and anamata.
Mhm.
Onamata means to look through the eyes of the past, to learn from those stories, and anamata means to look forward and
Yeah.
to look through the eyes of the future as to who we are becoming. And I think those are powerful principles. And even my father, who was a speaker as well, he always used to say, look back to learn, look forward to succeed. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, so good. It's so delicious for my brain. When we do that, then we sit in the present moment doing that. And that's where our place of power actually is, because we cannot change the past. We can change how we react to it. We can
Yes.
write new stories about the future, and we can't control the future because, again, we're dealing with humans and they have their own feelings too. But we can look forward into our future and look at how we want to succeed. And
Mm.
that comes from writing new stories.
Look back to learn, look forward to succeed. So good. So good, Monique. Hey, if people want to reach out to you or follow your work, what's the best place to do that?
Oh, I would love them to do that. They can follow me across multiple social media platforms. So I'm Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, all through either Monique Bradley or moniquebradley.tv. My website is moniquebradley.tv as well. So, and I've put TV in there because TV has been my platform of being able to communicate and connect, and Monique Bradley. There's only one other famous Monique Bradley in the world. And not that saying that I'm famous, but it's who I'm becoming. No, I'm joking. What is fame anyway? It's about serving. It's about connecting and telling more stories. So moniquebradley.tv.
Beautiful. So good. So just to wrap up, if there's one final thing you want to share with our listeners today, what would that be, Monique?
Ko Monique Bradley tōku ingoa. He kai kōrero aho. I'm Monique Bradley. I am a storyteller, and so are you. So make your message meaningful.
Beautiful. Thank you for all the wisdom that you shared. I just know there's so much more. I love your heart for people and for stories and just helping people write the best stories that are going to really help them move forward. So thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's such an honor to be on this. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Wonderful. Can't wait to get this out. Haha, here it is. It's out. So
Yay.
thank you so much for tuning in. That's been another episode of the Thrive TV show. Go out and thrive.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.